What is up, jackasses? Thanks for clicking on this link. Let's get to a little bit of the movie news that you might have missed this week. So what we'll briefly be discussing this week is legendary actor Gene Hackman dies. Kathleen Kennedy's stepping away from Lucasfilm. Just kidding. No, she's not. Michelle Trachtenberg, a.k.a. Dawn from Buffy, has passed away. John Lithgow is officially cast as Dumbledore for the new Harry Potter series, and we get our first glimpse at Shrek 5, featuring a new cast member, the ubiquitous Zendaya. Since that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get to the news, shall we? So in the first story that we're going to get into is that legendary actor Gene Hackman and his wife had sadly passed away this past week. When the news first broke, I wasn't really shocked. I mean, Gene Hackman was 95 years old. It was everything else in that article that really had me and a lot of other people surprised. So initially how I understood the report was that Gene Hackman and his wife and their dog had been found dead. Police didn't, initially the reports were that police didn't suspect any foul play, but there was an ongoing investigation. Well, turns out there's a little bit more to the story. I know Gene Hackman's kids had suspected that it had been a gas leak in the house, that it was potentially carbon monoxide poisoning. But as we looked a little bit deeper into it, so this is a little bit graphic, this story. Apparently, Gene Hackman's wife had been found mummified and bloated by workers who hadn't seen the couple for 2 weeks, right? So the workers at the place hadn't seen them in a while. They went and did a welfare check and then called the cops in. So here's also where the story gets a little bit shady. So So now the cops are probing a new theory on their final moments. They say, here, let me pull this one up. So police initially said that no foul play was suspected and that there were 2 dogs that actually survived this triple tragedy. But a search warrant has since been ruled into their deaths as suspicious enough to probe further. So there was a 911 call was released yesterday. Honestly, I can't listen to that stuff. You may be more interested in that than me. Apparently, people at the Daily Mail don't know how to edit because a chilling 991 call. I think they are based in Britain, so maybe they didn't. Maybe they never heard of 911. Reveals dogs barking as a man sobs after discovering the Hollywood star and his wife. So from what I've read into this, and some of this could just be conspiracy, but there were pills found next to Gene Hackman's wife's body, and it looks like they'd been there for some time, maybe over a week, possibly 2 weeks, and that Gene Hackman's body was found and he had fallen down. I mean, at 95 years old, that's a pretty common thing to have happen. So there's some speculating, obviously right now, that's just the point we're in, but there was some speculating that this was kind of like a Romeo and Juliet situation. Gene fell, eventually succumbed to his injuries at that age. Maybe he had a heart attack. 95, that's an old age, but his wife had been with him since the early 90s. She was 30 years younger than him, but apparently she was just madly in love. So a lot of people are speculating that she took those pills to unalive herself. The dog that was found next to her eventually got overcome with hunger, ate some of those pills that she ate, and that dog ultimately met his demise. But as of now, everything's just kind of up in the air. It seems pretty sus. I'm going to say that. I don't know why, because now they're saying that there was no signs of a gas leak in the house. That's the other red flag. But I had someone reach out to me yesterday and say the problem with CO2 poisoning is that you really need to investigate it like within days of it happening, and apparently this happened weeks ago, so there may be no trace evidence that there was a gas leak in the house. So I'm sure more to the story is going to come out, but it's sad news all around. Gene Hackman, honestly, is one of my all-time favorite actors. I mean, the guy's in a bunch of brilliant movies. If you haven't seen The Conversation, which is a Francis Ford Coppola movie that came out in 1974, he made that movie and The Godfather Part 2 that year. So, I mean, I know, Coppola released, what was it called? I know that Coppola released Megalopolis this past year, and it is one of the most pretentious wet farts ever. It's unintentionally hilarious, but if you're a film buff, I highly suggest watching that movie because it's a beautiful train wreck. I don't think it's a good movie, but there's plenty of people I've talked to who absolutely adore it. That said, Coppola in the 70s, The Godfather Part 2, Apocalypse Now, and The Conversation. All brilliant movies. The Conversation with Gene Hackman, watch it if you haven't. It holds up really, really well outside of the technology aspect, but the tension's real. And one of the cool things about it is because he did make The Godfather Part 2 and The Conversation that year, they were both nominated for Best Picture. The Conversation's honestly my favorite Coppola movie and my favorite Gene Hackman movie. So go ahead and check that one out. Other great movies of Gene Hackman. I mean, there's too many to list, but I love Mississippi Burning, The Birdcage, Bonnie and Clyde. He has a great cameo in Young Frankenstein. Apparently, he just wanted to do it because he was buddies with Mel Brooks. What else? What other movies are there? There's tons. I mean, there's The Replacements with Keanu Reeves. He plays that. He had a really good knack for comedy because he always played such a stiff, and and his comedic timing was actually great because of it. You're kind of seeing a late career resurgence in that with Harrison Ford. Similar, they're not really similar actors, but man, I mean, Gene Hackman hadn't been in a movie since 2004, and I think that one was Welcome to Mooseport, that Ray Romano movie. He retired, apparently became pretty reclusive in his older years, lost touch with some of his kids. So it sounds like a sad old ending to a brilliant career, a brilliant actor. But yeah, anyway, as far as the news on this, just keep an eye out. I think it's going to, there's probably going to be a lot more that's revealed in the coming days and weeks. All right, so in other news, Kathleen Kennedy is retiring. She's stepping away from Lucasfilm, right? Wrong. This story is the same crap that's been going on for at least the last 5 years. A lot of Star Wars fans were rejoicing because of what's become of their beloved series. I mean, I honestly do fault her for a lot of what's happened with Disney Star Wars. It's not entirely on her, but it just seems. Anyway, this story it doesn't go away. She ended up here. Let's pull this up real fast. She ended up, so see right here. The Star Wars chief is staying on at Disney despite a report that she's leaving, at least for now. Rumors that Lucasfilm's longtime president may be leaving Disney have swirled for quite some time, but reports that Kathleen Kennedy will retire at the end of her contract may be jumping the gun. So Kennedy's only 71. I mean, that's not a spring chicken, but, in today's day and age, she'll probably live to be 110. So right now they're emphasizing that there's nothing to this story. So what I think may be happening here is that eventually Kennedy will step away from Lucasfilm, but she said she's making movies until the day she dies. What does that mean exactly? Is she going to stay on with Disney and oversee the Star Wars franchise and keep just kind of throwing dirt on the grave that's already been dug? Maybe she'll go out and do stuff with Spielberg again. She obviously has been in the industry for quite a long time. She's married to Frank Marshall, who is no spring chicken on his own end. I don't think he's been doing too much as of late. But yeah, here under every movie. So the next Star Wars movie that's being released is The Mandalorian and Grogu. Mandalorian season 1 and 2 I thought were fantastic. Season 3, not so much. I didn't hate it like a lot of people did, but I certainly didn't love it. But she's overseen things like Ahsoka, which is, I don't remember anything about it. Boba Fett, terrible. Skeleton Crew was all right. It was a fun show to watch with my kids, but not memorable. And it's also one of the lowest rated things Star Wars has ever done. And then what was the Acolyte, which was every YouTuber's favorite punching bag. I'm no different. I watched the entire series, put out a very scathing review about it, but And what's kind of funny about this is I put up a lot of reviews, and, you hear a lot of terms like toxic fandom and things of that nature, but I've never really adhered to that. When I first started doing this and I'd review things like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or fan bases that people are really passionate about, sure, out of the woodwork, you'd get a few shills that would be, no matter what they do, they're going to die on the hill that these things are fantastic. But by the time I reviewed The Acolyte, it was pretty much unanimous across the board. There were no shills coming out really defending the show. Everybody seemed to kind of hate it. So that's where we are. What do you think about the news of Kathleen Kennedy? Are you disappointed? Are you surprised? Honestly, so when the reports were first coming out, I didn't say anything about it because I was like, you know what, give it a few days and I'm sure this story is going to change. And that's exactly what happened here. Star Wars is basically a series. I have no idea who all the characters are anymore. I don't really care about any of the releases. And that's coming from someone who grew up. I was the first in line at those midnight showings of the prequel series. I saw every one of them opening night. And I wasn't a big fan of those at the time, but now I can go back and appreciate them a lot more for what they were. They're cheesy as hell, but they're fun, and they are Star Wars. And you know what? Force Awakens catches a lot of grief because it's essentially just recycling A New Hope. But when I remember first seeing that movie with my wife at the time, and we both loved it. I actually, time has since passed, and I've seen what became of the trilogy. And in the second one, The Last Jedi, man, that's probably my least favorite Star Wars thing ever, and that's saying something since The Acolyte was a complete dog shit. That's really all I got on Kathleen Kennedy. She's sticking around. I don't know how many things she's going to oversee with Star Wars. They keep announcing movie projects, and then you just never hear about anything coming to fruition from them. Apparently now, though, there's the Sean Levy, Ryan Gosling Star Wars movie that seems to have a lot of momentum. That seems to be moving forward. I think it's going to take place after Rise of Skywalker. So we'll see. The South Park is probably going to have a little bit of fun with it. We all know how, if you've seen that South Park episode, it's brilliant, and it has basically been a running gag ever since that episode came out. So that's where we are with Kathleen Kennedy. Anyway, so let's move on to another story. So this one seems to be garnering a little bit of, I don't know. People seem to be kind of crapping all over it, but that's the day and age we live in with the internet, right? But so Lanterns, which is a Green Lantern based series, is released its first image, and it's nothing. It looks like two guys who are about to walk into a sticky situation. But for those aren't familiar, this is Aaron Pierre. This is Kyle Chandler. Kyle Chandler's playing an older Hal Jordan, supposedly passing the mantle of Green Lantern over to Jon Stewart, played by Aaron Pierre. So it says the first photo of stars Aaron Pierre and Kyle Chandler shows the two in regular clothing walking down an empty road. Yeah, no shit. That's in keeping with the description of the show based on the long-running DC Comics characters as following new recruit Jon Stewart and Lantern legend Hal Jordan. Two intergalactic cops drawn into a dark Earth-based mystery as they investigate a murder in the American heartland. So the show's from creators Chris Mundy, Tom King, and Damon Lindelof, and has also been described as having a true detective vibe. Yeah, you could take Tom King out of that. I can't stand that douchebag. So I get people are speculating here. They're saying the hint of the photo is that Pierre and Chandler are part of a superhero story, the Green Lantern core ring, and Hal Jordan's finger. The Green Lantern core ring on Hal Jordan's finger. So yeah, How are you supposed to get excited about this photo? It's just two dudes walking. I mean, I'd like to see them in the Green Lantern costume. I am excited about this series. I'm interested in the direction the DCU is kind of going. I know that there's a lot of people. I posted something about the new Superman movie on my Instagram, and you really see how passionate people were about the Snyder thing. I mean, everyone, myself included, thinks that Henry Cavill never got a fair shake in that as Supes. But I don't want to jump the gun. I think I'm going to see Superman. Obviously, you're probably going to see Superman. I really want to see if this universe is able to course correct, especially with things being mentioned like superhero fatigue. That definitely is real. I don't want to hear from anybody that it's not. But the problem is so many of the superhero modeled movies have been beyond mediocre as of late. I mean, Captain America, Brave New World was, as far as I'm concerned, it wasn't a bad movie, but it was just more meh from Marvel. It didn't get me excited about anything coming up in the MCU. And what's interesting about that is that in the movie, Ross tells Sam Wilson, he says, "Hey, I want you to start gathering the Avengers again." And I'm like, "Oh, that's great. Who are they? Who are the Avengers now?" There've been so many movies and canceled projects and things that people just didn't react positively to. So if you out there know, who are the Avengers now? I have no idea. But all right, I digress. Let's get on to this. Is anyone excited for the Lantern series? I think it's going to be good. HBO's been on a pretty good run as of late with shows like The White Lotus. What else is there? Oh, I mean, The Penguin. Penguin was fantastic. I hope that we get a second season of that, but I'd be perfectly fine if that was only one season and it leads into the movies. I mean, Colin Farrell's getting about as much praise as you could possibly get, especially playing that role. So yeah. Anyway, so let's move on to another story. So this is let's talk about another death this year that this one hit me a little bit harder. So Michelle Trachtenberg, she passed away at the age of 39 this past week. That's the exact same age as me. This one hit me a little bit hard, guys. I'm not going to lie. Buffy's probably one of, if not my favorite shows of all time. I remember watching that show as a teenager, and then kind of following Michelle's career for a little bit. I remember seeing her when I was a kid in Harriet the Spy, and she was in Pete and Pete, wasn't she? Like way back in the day when she was a young child actress. My daughter, I had a daughter when I was in my 20s, and she absolutely loved Ice Princess growing up. I know a lot of people enjoyed her role in Gossip Girl. She was in Eurotrip. She had that really sexy part in the band. If you're my age, you'll probably remember Trapped, who sang Headstrong. They had a song called Echo, and she was kind of the main focal point, the main chick. Super sexy in that music video. And this one hurts a little bit. I went on a Reddit thread yesterday, and a lot of people were my age, especially, were really lamenting it. It puts mortality into perspective for you. It's another sad story of a young child actor who, had a really promising career, and then ultimately, something happens, and just it seemed like the last decade or so of her life was really hard. There were speculations of extreme alcohol abuse. There were reports of things like she had recently had a liver transplant and her body wasn't taking to it. If you saw photos of her on her Instagram or anything recently, I mean, she did not look good. She looked frail. Her face was real sunken in. Her skin tone was not good, and she used to be a lovely, lovely girl. But right now, what they're saying is that her cause of death was revealed. So the family didn't order an autopsy. So, the chief medical examiner had said that her cause of death is undetermined. So we're never going to really know what caused her death, especially since the family declined an autopsy. But there's a lot of speculation out there. But just a sad week in life. I mean, obviously she never had the career that I think she was set up to have. I thought there was a period there, especially after Buffy, where she seemed to be in a lot of things. She was in 17 again with Zac Efron, which was a pretty big hit at the time. And then Gossip Girl, Eurotrip. There was a lot of things lining up in her favor, and it's really unfortunate. It's sad. So I posted a video on my Instagram and TikTok yesterday, basically just a tribute to her. It was sad. Buffy's one of those shows where I know that there's a lot of problematic things that came out about it, but when you just go back and watch it now, you realize that they don't make shows like that anymore. The character development was excellent, especially for characters like Dawn, who ultimately was just who was the key. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it, but I highly recommend you go back and watch that series. Yeah, I mean, I don't really. I know that Sarah Michelle Gellar posted, and so did Blake Lively. They said they lost a truly sensitive and good person. I mean, all around, she did seem like she had a pretty big impact on a lot of these people. Hopefully, she doesn't just become another forgotten star whose life ended a little tragically early. A lot of people seem to have a lot of love for her. So, sad news. Hate to see it. So, in a little bit more of lighthearted news, it looks like the female version of Pedro Pascal has been cast in Shrek 5 as the ogre's daughter. So yesterday we got a little teaser trailer for Shrek 5, which is coming out at the end of next year, which is wild. They can't just let, they just can't let series lie, especially series that used to make money. I think but when the last Shrek came out, if you were a kid back then, you're an adult now. So, nostalgia is a very big selling point in Hollywood these days. So let's see if we got this look. Yeah. So I'm not going to play it just because YouTube hates that, but there's a lot of people saying that they don't care for the new redesign. A lot of people are comparing it to, when Sonic released its first look and fans were just in an uproar. So this is the first look of the redesign. It doesn't, it's not terrible. It looks a little bit uglier. It doesn't look as clean with the characters. Obviously, CG's grown a lot since then, computer effects. But yeah. So anyway, Shrek 5's coming out next year. That was a little bit of news in that. And what else do we have? So according to this story, this exclusive, John Lithgow confirms casting as Dumbledore in HBO's Harry Potter series. And he says, this is going to define the last chapter of my life. He is 79 years old. So yeah, John, he's 79. He doesn't spill any details about the series, but he says, it came as a total surprise to me. I just got the phone call when he was in Sundance. And it was not an easy decision because it's going to define me for the last chapter of my life. I'm afraid, but I'm very excited. Some wonderful people are turning their attention back to Harry Potter. That's why it's been a hard decision. I'll be about 87 years old at the wrap party, but I've said yes. So I think a lot of people are have many opinions about this. Let me pull this one up. So I think a lot of people have some pretty hot takes on this. First of all, he's not British; he's American, and I know that J.K. Rowling, at least when the original series came out, made it a very big point that everyone had to be a native-born British person. What would be the PC way of saying that? It had to be from Britain, had to be English. But John Lithgow's a legendary actor. He was fantastic in the recent Conclave. He can pull off an English accent, but my concern is, he's 79, and what happened in the first series? We lost Richard Harris, who was a great Dumbledore. He was replaced by Michael Gambon, who, honestly, I think Michael Gambon was great. He was very different than Richard Harris. Richard Harris kind of had the wise, older, calm, gentle sort of Dumbledore. He had the Richard Harris was really the wise, gentle, old, comforting Dumbledore, whereas Michael Gambon was a little bit more tense. He was a little bit more aggressive, but he really channeled the internal. He had a lot of nuance to his character. He had a little bit more depth, I think. But I liked both iterations. We got used to Richard Harris in the first two movies. He sadly passed away, and then they brought in Michael Gambon. So I'd like to see maybe a combination of both with John Lithgow. He has a great ability to play a very likable character, but he's also really, really good at playing just a complete slimeball, like when he was playing the serial killer in the Dexter series. I thought that was just fantastic. So that's really the news from this week. There was a lot that happened, a lot that we have to say about this. But how do you feel about John Lithgow as Dumbledore? There's still a lot of announcements that need to be made. I think this series is supposed to kick off sometime next year. Harry Potter is one of those. It used to be every dork's favorite thing on the planet, and now it's so divisive. But I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. I kind of stay out of the personal feelings on things, because if I did that, then I would never eat or watch anything if I disagreed with what people had to, if I disagreed with the flaws of humanity and how they felt about certain issues. It's really not my place to go there. Anyway, that's the news for this week. That's what we have. I try to keep it short and sweet. Your time is precious. Hopefully you liked what you saw here. If you did, please like, subscribe, share. Tune in next week when I'm going to do the same thing. This is something I'm just trying for right now. I want to start putting out more content on YouTube, because I absolutely despise TikTok. They censor the dumbest things. They kick off people for no reason. And I think it's just kind of a trash app at this point. Instagram's fun, but it's more so where I'll just put my short reviews. You can follow me over there. I put my short reviews up. I'll post some memes. And I just genuinely try to have a fun time over there. Here on YouTube, I do a little bit more commentary. I'm going to start doing these news segments. I got a live stream on Sundays, so be sure and check that out. I've been featuring a lot of cool creators and things of that nature. So that's really it for this week, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in to check this out. Let me know some of your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you next week. Catch you later, friends.
That talks too much. I'm just a jackass of all trades. Don't know shit. I'll keep on talking, acting like I'm so legit. From politics to sports, I'll spout my fake wit.